Hi, everybody. Hi, Diane. Hi, Richard. Hi, Raj.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for part 3 of the Anesthesia Bootcamp series. I'm Laura Herrera, Vice President of Marketing for Somnia. Today's topic is titled Stretching Coverage, Part 3, Real-Time Heat Mapping. Joining us today is Dr. Mark Koch, President and CEO of Somnia, and Elizabeth Snyder, Director of Education and Project Management. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation where we'll be able to answer all of your questions. Feel free to ask questions during the presentation in the chat area. All of our presentations will be available on YouTube and accessible through our social media channels. The Anesthesia Bootcamp series will be running all month long. Be sure to visit www.somniainc.com/bootcamp for a list of our scheduled webinars. So let's get started. Mark?
Hi. And first of all, thank you for everybody who took time out of their day to be with us. And in our previous discussions with these webinars, we really tried to outline for everybody just how serious the situation is with anesthesia staffing, and it's pretty grim. Most hospitals, most surgery centers, even most office-based facilities are struggling mightily with coverage and staffing, and it's tight. And what we're trying to do in this series is first lay out how serious the situation is with regard to medical anesthesiology and anesthesia in general, staffing, and then secondarily trying to give hospitals and hospital administrators some tools so they could better face this challenge. And today's is a little bit talking a little bit about heat mapping and coverage, because if you only have a certain number of staff, the question is, how do we have that staff go further? And I'll apologize in advance. I have a little bit of a frog in my throat. Recovering from being sick, so I apologize if my voice isn't so good, but I'll do the best I can. And Liz Snyder, who worked with me very closely as a team on analytics, and we'll be presenting this to you together and then answering questions at the end. So with no further ado, may we have our first slide, please, Laura. Okay. Great. So today's outline is we want to go over with you not just data, but actionable data and metrics, but not just any metrics, metrics that you could react to, that you could plan on, and that will help you stretch your staff further. The goal being to get through all of your surgery as best as you can with a limited number of staff. We're going to do some case studies looking at heat mapping with staffing utilization and correlate utilization to cost, and then test drive and show you how you could use the data to facilitate change. Next slide, please. So first things first. The data is important because it allows you to gain insights. And with those insights, you can take an action. And if you take that action, you can begin to monitor. You can begin to monitor the progress of your action. See if you're actually doing something. It's sort of that old plan, do, plan, PDSA act pathway, if you will. Next step, please. Next slide, please. Somebody's coming in. I'm going to let them in. Okay. So let's get started. Let's take a look at a current situation. Let's establish some benchmarks. Let's analyze the data. Let's test and drive change. And then let's measure how successful that change could possibly be. And for example, let's just say 1,000 cases, 65 to 80% utilization is our goal, 30-minute turnover, our sort of our goal. right? 1,000 cases in OR, 65 to 80% utilization, 30-minute turnover. That's sort of garden variety goals. And I think if we have a facility in our network that does this sort of, has this sort of data, we're pretty good that we're on the right track. For data collection, we take a look at all surgeries within a determined period of time. We take a look at very specific data: case start, case end, total case duration, OR room number or name, scheduled start time, specialty, anesthesia type, and primary procedure. With that data set, we can begin to develop these models that we're going to go over with you. Next slide, please. So let's take a look at a case study. Here's a facility that's running 15 operating rooms, and they have 17 starts. By 3 o'clock, they're going down to 6 rooms, and by 5 o'clock, they're going to 4. And for those of you who are hospital administrators new to the job, this is called your OR funnel, okay? And this is the OR funnel. And if you imagine a funnel goes like this, then to this, then to this, that's sort of your funnel as you go from early in the morning to later in the day and the overnight. Next slide, please. Now, you could take a look at this, your volume, and you could say, how is that volume distributed over a period of time from, let's say, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.? And to do this, we take a look at the average number of cases running per time block, okay? And we do that for different days of the week because that can vary on days of the week. And as you could see here, if you take a look at each of these time blocks and you examine it, you could tell that there's some pretty significant variation. So take a look at 4 to 5 o'clock and take a look at a Monday versus a Friday, right? That's pretty different. And how do you exploit that to make sure you could conform your staffing? Because if you could spare staff on a Friday and put them on Monday, then what happens is you could avoid some burnout and it allows your staff to stretch a little bit further. And you start to see these variations both at time of the day and by day of the week. Okay, we went over the 5 to 6, the 4 to 5 block, but also take a look, at 7 in the morning and take a look what that looks like on a Thursday. Again, bring some granularity and data-driven changes to what we're doing and how we're doing it is the goal here. Okay, so Liz, is there anything that I should be adding here that you think would be useful for the audience to know?
No, this is exactly just looking at what is going on. And then if you look behind what's happening versus the coverage, you'll see where there's the most amount of gaps. So that's just about it.
Yeah. So you could see those light blue. That light blue are areas where you really could think about conforming it more closely to your actual volume. And you could think of the blue as being perhaps time we could trim down a little bit by just seeing it's empty. There's no blue lines there. You're opening more rooms and requiring more coverage, even though you might not need it. Next slide, please. Now, we could take a look at utilization in a different dimension. We could take a look at what that looks like graphically, taking a look at some utilization targets. Now, if you look to the right, you can see that utilization overall varies from 7 to 3, where it's about 55%, 3 to 5, about 66%, and about 5 to 7, 46%. Overall, about 52%. Now, what that means for those of you who might be new hospital administrators is that about half of the time your operating rooms are quiescent. You've planned to cover X rooms from this time to that time, but about half of the time you're not doing cases. So it's an opportunity to see improvements. Now, what I'm going to tell you is, remember Liz said that benchmark, like to see something between 65 and 80%. Well, if you run 10 operating rooms And let's say you run 10 operating rooms and you're a level 1 trauma center, and you always have to have one room free for trauma. Theoretical maximum, not looking at turnover time and flip rooms, maximum wouldn't be 100% because you'll always have one free room. It's going to be 90%. And let's say you always have one flip room. That means you're always going to have one room that's quiet. So now, instead of being at 100%, you would be at 90%. But if you're also trauma, now you go, instead of 100% down to 90% because you're trauma, now down to 80% because you also have a flip room. So whenever you look at utilization data, you have to always have context to it. But this is a good example, grossly, where 50% does sound a bit low. Next slide, please.
Absolutely. And just to add to that, this does factor in turnover time of about 30 minutes.
Right. So not so good. So now let's go on and take a look at some of the data and how we could evaluate a change and what that would mean. Okay. So we're taking a look at 15 locations from 7 to 3, 6 locations, 3 to 5, and 4 locations, 5 to 7, 4 to 7. And you could see the utilization to your right. And you could see where the utilization is particularly poor because it's red. You could say where it's pretty neutral, maybe yellowish, and you could see where it's particularly good in the green. Now, utilization that's too high, to me, is a bellwether for burnout. And you have to be careful because there's a sweet spot. And everybody's trying to get that high utilization, then all of a sudden, the nurses are getting burned out, the docs are getting burned out, the CRNAs are getting burned out, everybody's getting burned out. So it's a fine line here. Liz, anything to add?
Nope, not at all. We'll just go on to the next slide here.
So now look here, we took the number of rooms and we've reduced the number of rooms, and we're going to see what happens. And as you could see here, as we take, can you go back one slide and we'll show the slide before? It's 15.
I'm sorry to cut you off. This is actually the same right now, just breaking out. I made the color, the heat map specific as opposed to just best and worst within its own cohort. So by taking the heat map, so to speak, and aligning it with certain metrics that you're looking for, you can better identify. So this is the first one at the original model.
Thank you, Liz.
Mm-hmm.
And remember the 1564. Next slide, please. So as now we reduce those number of operating rooms down to 14, right? And from 14 and down to 5 and down to 3. Now, what that means, fewer nursing teams, right? It means fewer anesthesia personnel. People might not be getting burned out, or you might be able to have that staff work on a different day when you're busy. So as you could see here, let's take a look at how the heat map changed, right? Things look pretty good, right? Pretty good, right? You know, there's still some areas where there's yellowish orange where we could still maybe pare down coverage a little bit. There's some that are light green and in the upper left that are okay. But it says that this model is a step in the right direction. And most importantly, by reducing that coverage, it doesn't look like we've done anything to necessarily overwhelm the system with regard to workloads. One exception. Take a look at Wednesday and Thursday and that 3 to 4 block. And you see we're how at 91%, right? Means people might be working pretty hard, right? So if you took a look at what we did and how we reduced the coverage during the day at each of those blocks, you might say, hey, maybe we could push some of that coverage a little bit later in the day on Wednesday and Thursday. Okay, hope everybody understands that. Okay, next slide, please. Remember 14.5, 14.5 and 3, and now we're going to go to 13.4 and 2. Take a look here. 13, 4, and 2. Look what's happening during the day. Things are looking okay. Utilization looks like it's varying from 50 to 77%. Things are looking good. Doesn't look like people are going to feel like they're overwhelmed. Looks like people should be getting their breaks and some downtime. But look what happens, as you take a look at the 3 to 4 and then the 5 to 6 window. Again, looks like you're getting a little bit up there. Looks like people might be getting a little bit busy. So here, what we might want to do is, again, as we take some coverage that's there during the day, maybe shift it to later. So maybe having fewer people during the day, but have them work a little bit later. Makes the case for almost like, 3 12s instead of, having people work 3 longer days rather than 4 average days, because you could see here, you could have that coverage go further. Okay, Liz, anything to add here about the observations and anything that you think I might have overlooked or want to add?
You hit all of it. We see, it's 13 in the day is okay, but we certainly can't go down to 4 and 2. So let's take the 5 and 3 back, but let's keep driving the day.
Great. Yep. Okay. So now we went up a little bit during the later day, but we went down during the day. And look here, it looks like we're pretty good, except for Monday morning, right? It looks like we're pretty good. Now, how would you deal with that? Now, I'll tell you how I would deal with it, and there's many answers to that. This is just one person's thoughts. Is you might say, hey, listen, to the person that was on call Sunday, do you mind staying a little bit earlier? Maybe help me start a couple cases and maybe get out of here around 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. If I have to pay somebody a little bit more to do that, that's okay, because I don't need them for the rest of the day. And let's be spare a person. But look what happens for the rest of the daytime. Looks like you're just fine. Take a look at your 3 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7. It looks like you might be a little bit tight again in that 3 to 4 window. Now, what you could do again is you could make a case to people. Would you be willing to stay a little bit later? Have a staggered schedule where everybody works. You have a couple people that work a little bit earlier, a couple people a little bit later, and people even later. But it allows you to stagger maybe your start times a little bit, or do some creative things with regard to evening out your schedule. And again, during the day, except for Monday, looks like we're good. We went from 15 rooms down to 12 during the day. And look, the only pressure point we have is Monday morning. Looks like we made some changes during the 3 to 7 blocks, and it looks like pretty much good, except for that 3 to 4 hour period. Next slide, please. Now, here's where we go a little bit crazy. Okay, we brought it down to 11 rooms during the day. Now, here's where you start to see that we're starting to have even more problems. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, it looks like we might be a bit busy, right? We're above 80%. Now, why am I harping on 80%? Hypothetically, 10 operating rooms, level 1 trauma center, maximum utilization can't be higher than 90%. You always have to have a free room. 1 flip room, that means you can never be higher than 80%, assuming 0 turnover time. So I know that when it's above 80%, I begin to get a little bit fidgety. So here you could see that we might have reached a point of diminishing returns during the day, right? So I know that 11 mark might be kind of my I've gone a little bit too far. But you could take a look at the rest of the day, and the rest of the day looks like it's okay. Now, again, putting on my problem solver hat, maybe it makes the case if there's somebody post-call, maybe having them stay an hour later, because if they have to stay an hour later, you start to now get to 8 o'clock, you start to be a little bit better, stay a couple hours, even better. So again, you could start to be really creative and think of ways to create conforming models once you have the data. Right now, again, we still have the problem later in the day, the 3 to 4 hour period of time, but we've already talked about that, and the need to address that remains, as we've said before. And the solutions to that, again, might be frame shifting, might be having somebody come in earlier from call, if they're coming in for call, lots of different solutions to that. Next slide, please. So Liz, I'll let you take this slide.
So determining, even without any shifting of the shifts and just going with 12, 5, and 3 overall, except for on Monday and Friday, we get a trade-off. We're able to pull 13 on Monday, 12, 12, 12, and then 11. Just doing that alone, this is the revised schedule, and the overall utilization goes from about 52% to 65%. Mark, do you want to add anything to this slide?
No, it's a perfect example to show you how you could go from a model which is less than optimal to a more optimized model, an aligned model, and make it work. So if you have fewer staff, you make them go further. If your fewer staff are feeling burnt out, this is a way to maybe make a more conforming model so they don't feel as burnt out. And this applies to anesthesia and your nursing teams. And Liz, thank you for maybe next slide.
Right, so right here, this was the previous version we saw, coverage versus what was actually happening, because utilization is part of it, but actual cases starting is a huge part of what you need to continue coverage. And now you're much more aligned with what's going on. There's still some gaps, as any schedule will show, but that is, you've aligned it better without even causing a lot of change needed to be made on the other departments on block schedule. And your reduction based on the hours is about a 3.5 FTE if it's for CRNA, or if it's MD 2.5. If it's a mix, it's somewhere in between there. And depending on your staffing, that 3.5 to 2.5 could be anywhere from 750 to 1.5 million over a year. So
as you could tell, Liz, and I have shown you how small changes can make a big difference. If you're looking at this through the economic lens, you could reduce cost. Nowadays, with staffing being so short and most hospitals going through staffing issues, with surgery centers and even office space going through staffing issues, it can help you think of ways to conform the staff you do have in a more prudential and contouring fashion. And, it's become a situation where these things used to be more of an interesting luxury to fine-tune coverage, and now it's becoming more of a necessity. And this is true for small rural hospitals, big level 1 traumas, and everything in between. MD heavy model, MD CRNA models, all CRNA models, it doesn't matter. Staff to staff, and having it go further is what matters. I think what we'd like to do now is open it up for questions. If you could put them in the chat box, Liz and I could answer them for you.
Mark, it doesn't look like we have any questions today.
Okay.
I think we can wrap up unless anyone has anything. I don't think we do. Thank you, Mark and Liz, for a very informative presentation. Again, the recording will be available via our YouTube channel, and you can follow us on social media to get the latest. Please don't forget to sign up for our next upcoming webinars. We have one scheduled for this Thursday at 1 p.m. And I think that's it for today. Thank you so much to everyone for attending, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.